This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning in to the program. It's Wednesday, May the 14th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, David Williams. He's produced the program. You'll be speaking with David when you pick up the phone and give us a shout to get in the queue and on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So quick check-in at the World Hockey Championships. Canada, no surprise, beat the French 5-0 yesterday. They get Austria tomorrow. And for the NHL playoff watchers, Winnipeg's in trouble. Dropped another one to Dallas last night, down in the series 3-1, but the Leafs fans will be on pins and needles. Now, the series is 2-2 between Toronto and the defending Cup champions, Florida. The home team has won all of the first 4 games. Toronto at home tonight. Pretty important game tonight, to say the least. And the others try to dispatch the Golden Knights. They're up in the series 3-1 as well. All right. I'm not surprised to hear this news. You heard from Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred a few times in the recent past talking about things like the lifetime ban for people like Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson. Now their lifetime ban is over. Upon their death, they're now eligible to be put into the Hall of Fame or voted into the Hall of Fame. I've always thought Rose belonged in the Hall of Fame. The gambling thing was obviously a huge problem. His lies about it were obviously compounding the problem. And Shoeless Joe Jackson, of course, one of 8 members of the Black Sox that rigged the World Series all those years ago. I don't know what the future holds for Shoeless Joe Jackson, but for Rose, it'll be fascinating to watch. 17 individuals are now eligible who were once on the lifetime ban list. Rose, 17-time All-Star. He holds the record for hits for 4,256. Games played at 3,562. At-bats over 14,000. Plate appearances over 15,000. Singles, 3,215. If you get 3,000 hits in your career, you're a shoo-in to the Hall of Fame. He's got 3,215 singles. He's the 1973 MVP, 1975 World Series MVP, 3-time batting champion, and, of course, he was plagued for a long time. Went to prison, too. Pete Rose did. Anyway, so he's now eligible. I think that's one of the great sports debates. All right, so you see these bloody stories about the rapid pace with which people are willing to drive. Peacekeepers Way, what is 162 kilometers an hour someone was caught? And then you get the story. So it's Road Safety Week. Out in Conception Bay South, for just a few hours, the RNC ticketed about 30 people for speeding in the school zone, even seized one vehicle. Don't know why that continues to happen, but of course it is happening. Then you put in the concept of passing school buses, and it's just disheartening. One of these days, the headline's not just going to be about the tickets that are written. Okay. So we know that the speed cams are coming, speed cameras. In the pilot project last summer, over the course of 3 months, over 90,000 issues or warnings were issued. Now you look at how it's worked in other jurisdictions. Cannot for the life of me understand what this legislation is brought forward for what reason in Alberta. So they had a news release said that they're ending the photo radar cash cow. All right. Announced in December, they were going to, the provincial government, banning photo radar on all provincial highways and connectors, restricting its use to school, playground, construction zones, and no longer allowing speed on green cameras at intersections. Why? Because, you look at some of the municipalities that are forecasting to lose revenue to the tune, say, Canmore, $250,000. Edson, about $464,000. Spruce Grove, $600,000. But it's not all necessarily about the revenue. And why put in rules to make it more difficult for municipalities to try to slow the motoring public down? As a result, came into effect on April the 1st. As a result, to a man, to a woman in these municipalities that have dropped the photo radar, it was 26 municipalities had them last year. Now it's down to 17. In every one of those communities, they are now reporting that the people are speeding again. Why? Because they're at no risk of being caught by a camera. So consequently, speeding is up, and obviously to follow, crashes and fatalities. So a mind-boggling, idiotic move to make it more difficult for municipalities to make their community safer. And I know not everyone's in favor of the speed camera, and I understand that. I personally am, but why that's been the case, don't know. It'd be nice to get an update as to where we are with the proposed 10 speed cameras. That can be rotated to different parts, and we know that there's some notorious places where people are apt to speed, but in Alberta just made it more difficult for the municipalities to do exactly that. Amazing stuff. All right. We always get a report from Food First NL coming about food insecurity, and the numbers are way up. It's not surprisingly, but here's the Stats Canada numbers for 2024. 30% of people in the province live in a food insecure household. That's up from 26% in 2023. That equates to 158,000 people. That's 24,000 more than the previous year. Then you break it down a little further. 6.2 experience marginal food security. That's no change. 15.7 experience moderate food security. That's up from 11% in 2023. 8.3% experience extreme or severe food insecurity. That's down from 8.7. So that's a good thing. But we're in a bad spot when compared to the rest of the country. I think we have the third worst food insecurity numbers. When you look at children, it is startling. More than 1/3, 39.9% of children live in a food insecure household. That's up from 30%, almost 31% in 2023. That's 33,000 children. Single-parent families are much more likely to experience food insecurity. 56.8% of single-parent families experience food insecurity. That's up from 39.5% in 2023. That's the highest rate of food security of any household type. The trends are going in the wrong direction. So maybe Josh Mee, who's always great talking about this particular issue, would like to come on and help break it down. But we know that all levels of government need to play an active role in addressing this. Imagine 33,000 children in the province food insecure. And so that basically means being able to afford food, and whether that results in, say, for instance, the parents skipping meals so that their children can eat, it paints a very bleak picture. But happy to have Josh on if he's available this morning. And certainly you're welcome as well. Because we talk about things like food insecurity and proximity to options and community gardens and hydroponics, all things which just make so much sense that could really help address some of these things. In the world of leafy greens and hydroponics, in Canada, 90% of the lettuce that we eat comes from California or Mexico. Why? We can do better. I know we have a massive country geographically speaking, but hydroponics work. The upfront cost can be severe, can be extreme, but that's where government can play a role. An interest-free loan. You get the money back and you address the food insecurity and the proximity to options right there and then. So those numbers are really hard to take. And people chiming in via email about the sugar tax being removed. Interestingly, not everybody thinks it's a good idea. So over the course of 3 years, it's brought in excess of $30 million, but nothing changed with people's purchasing habits. Then you hear from the retailers, and they talk about the cost to implement point-of-sale software to adjust for the sugar tax, and they point out, and rightfully so, when the sugar tax on so many people's receipts was not reflected, then they didn't feel it, they didn't see it, they just simply paid more for their favorite sugary beverage. Then, of course, people say, oh, it's a tax grab, and if it didn't work, it's good that it's gone away. Some people in the world of health think that it's possibly premature that it was removed. So there's always going to be two schools of thought on those particular things, but your thoughts are more than welcome. This is something, like we talk about healthcare all the time, and we have some troubling calls on it. Now, some people, when they get into the healthcare system, they experience the professionalism and the dedication and the compassion of the staff. Here's something that I've never really thought about. And it comes from a listener via email. Leave all the names out there as best as possible. So, this young lady who works in the world of dental care, her mother was hospitalized, so she had the experience up close and personal, whether it be the offloading bay, various emergency rooms areas, the medical unit, and then eventually through the ICU. What she's speaking about is oral health care. Now, she goes on to say that she talks about the professionalism, the tireless commitment to care, and offering all the gratitude and recognition that she can. Here's what she goes on to say. She took it upon herself to brush her mother's teeth daily and use interdental aids to clean between them. As a result of her condition and medication, she suffers from dry mouth, which is a very common problem amongst many people who are hospitalized. Without saliva's natural cleansing and protective functions, the mouth becomes much more vulnerable to decay, gum disease, and infection because, of course, saliva helps neutralize acids, washes away food particles, limit bacterial growth, functions that are obviously critically important, especially in medically compromised individuals. She goes on to say, that the healthcare professionals are overwhelmed with the amount of duties that they have to execute day in and day out. So she's not criticizing the hospital staff. But what she's saying is because of the overwhelming number of tasks, this falls by the wayside. So she says, don't underestimate the importance of brushing your loved one's teeth while they're hospitalized. Something so simple can bring comfort and prevent complications. To policymakers, she suggests it's time we formally integrate oral care into hospital routines, including dental assistants or dental hygienists in hospital-based care planning, and could support oral health assessments and basic hygiene. That makes a lot of sense. I've never even thought about it before. But we do know the direct link with your overall health and your oral health. And if and when hospitalized, if you don't have someone close by who loves you and comes in and takes it upon themselves to provide the oral health care, then it can lead to serious complications. So I'm really pleased that this lady chose to send that email along, so that maybe it's something that you hadn't considered, because I know I hadn't considered it, but you want to take it on? Let's do it. All right, let's get to the thrust and parry that is back and forth in the House of Assembly yesterday, specifically between PC member Lynn Paddock and the Deputy Premier, Minister of Finance, Siobhan Cody. This is all about the settlement award of $520 million, I think it is, from big tobacco companies. There is some expense inside of there. About $125 million has to be paid to various professionals. I assume it's accountants and lawyers. All right. So we talked about it yesterday. This government, unlike every other government in the country, who will still have it under review, going to the Auditor General and other matters to see how they should handle the monies. We didn't do it in this province. Applied all of it to this year's budget. People talk about it as simply being an election ploy. It makes the deficit seem smaller than it is. Now, the deficit is still technically $375 million, but it could have been over $800 million, and in an election year, problematic, on top of the over $4 billion worth of borrowing that we did this year. Minister Cody is offended by Mr. Paddock's comments that the Liberals are cooking the books. She talks about all the accountants that have worked on this particular file, assures the general public that this is appropriate accounting practices, and that very well may be. But this is not all secured money. You know, 40% of the compensation of $32.5 billion is upfront, but there's a lot of ifs over the coming decades as to the security of that money's coming in the door. Very much unlike in 2019 when the Atlantic Accord was adjusted and the payments were guaranteed by the feds. Okay. This is where it's an obvious problem. It was not in the budget speech. And we found out about it well after the fact. Like, had the government, and this is a self-inflicted wound, and it makes the conversation much more difficult for the government than it had to be. Had you gone to the AG, and the argument was made that this would be an appropriate approach to the compensation dollars, and it was included transparency inside of the budget speech itself, and simply say, we have been awarded X amount of money, in this case over $500 million, and here's what we're going to do with it. People would then, maybe there'd be some back and forth about the if associated with the payments and whether or not it should be under further review like other but it wouldn't be the conversation it is today. Now the assertion that cooking the books, and the minister is anticipating or asking for an apology. I don't know what's forthcoming today. But had we been told, then it would have absolutely tempered the reaction we're getting from the opposition and other people who are political watchers. Because it is important. Now, the minister goes on to say the government is obligated by law to record the revenue, and that's absolutely true. But you're only obligated by law to record the revenue when the revenue comes in, not forecasted revenues that have some uncertainty attached to it. That's my understanding of it and the understanding of the lawyer who I spoke with yesterday. So I don't know why there's endless opportunities for the government, even if we don't like the answers, even if we don't like the policy choices, when told up front, just like we always say, when you're trying to get an answer and it's deafening silence, that's worse than getting the answer that you did not want. So anyway, I think that's a big topic. You want to take it on, we can do exactly that. And also this strange one, and I've been talking about this on the show for quite a long time, it's the elevator inspections that are not being done on time, which is a bizarre place to be. So apparently there's over 500 elevators in the province that did not get a timely inspection last year. They're obliged to be inspected once a year. There's only 3 government inspectors. Whether or not that should be more, I'll leave it up to you. So Otis and TKE are private companies that are going to carry out the inspections and report back to the province's chief inspector. So they prioritize those who are brand new, the elevators that are brand new or don't work at all, they come first. If there's an issue highlighted by the private companies, then it triggers a follow-up inspection by government inspectors. But with some 500 that have not received an inspection, does beg a few questions about whether or not we should beef up the inspection department at the provincial government. Now, I'm not trying to say that every elevator that's not inspected is dangerous, because I don't think that's the actual case, but it's just one of those strange ones where people have been waiting for repairs for extended amounts of time, and then in the inspection story, which is a little bit strange. Anyway, we can take it on. 1 second, sip of coffee. All right. So for the Atlantic Salmon 2025 Atlantic Salmon Recreational Fishery Management Plan. All right. So the regulations for the 25 season, which are from June the 1st to September the 7th on the island, and from June 14th to September 15th in Labrador. Nothing's changed for this year. No change to the regulations. You can retain 2 salmon for the season and hook and release 3 per day. Incidentally, there is no retention in the rest of Atlantic Canada, so you can't keep a salmon at PEI, New Brunswick, or Nova Scotia. All right. So let's dig into it a little bit. There's going to be lots of difference between people's perspective about the mortality rates associated with hook and release. It's about a lot of things. It's how you play the fish, how long the salmon is out of the water, and then, of course, the temperature of the river water itself. So for folks who are much more in the know about this issue, you're welcome to come on, but someone sent me a screen grab of a pretty contentious back and forth regarding the no change in rules and whether or not there should be any retention and whether or not hook and release can be done as safe as people say. They point to, like in Russian waters apparently, where they have great success with hook and release, and not the numbers that you hear some people say that, well, half of the salmon hooked and release end up dying as a result, and I don't know what the accurate numbers will be, but for anglers who'd like to get in on it from any side of it, let's go. All right, a couple of big ones before we get to you this morning. All right, what have I got here? So Joanne Thompson, the Liberal member for St. John's East, retains her ministerial portfolio, fisheries, and responsibility for the Coast Guard. Hands full for sure. So whether it be, the Prime Minister talking about potential restructuring at DFO, whether or not that's going to come to pass, how things like redfish and the commercial northern cod fishery and mackerel are going to be handled by the Minister, whether or not we're going to see any advancement of conversations about joint management, what that looks like, any amendments to the Fisheries Act, which are long overdue, whether it be issues regarding bycatch and buddy up, and adjacency as being the guiding principle. But let's just dig into a few other interesting areas in the Prime Minister's newly announced and sworn-in cabinet. Talked about it being leaner. Okay. 29 members of cabinet, including the Prime Minister. 14 are absolutely entirely new faces. 9 of the ministers are rookie MPs, which is interesting in and of itself. But in addition to the 29 are 10 secretaries of state, so not quite as lean as the Prime Minister was speaking to, because those additional responsibilities come with additional pay. Let's look into a couple of interesting ones, and it has an absolute impact on this province. Tim Hodson. He worked for Goldman Sachs. He was an advisor to Mark Carney while he was the governor of the Bank of Canada. He was just recently was the chair of Hydro One, which of course is the electricity provider in the province of Ontario. And what would have been, I would think, considered an olive branch to the province of Alberta in particular, he was 3 years a board member with MEG Energy, which is a major oil sands producer in the province of Alberta. That was not acknowledged by Premier Smith, but it's an interesting choice. And of course, there's some questions to be asked about natural resources in this province. Housing, also really, an interesting choice. Gregor Robertson, formerly the mayor of Vancouver, so he knows the issues, but the reality in Vancouver is it's the most overheated real estate market in the country. Affordability is almost non-existent in Vancouver. And at the same time, we're talking about building below market price housing, modular homes or otherwise. So that's 2 pretty interesting ones just right there itself. And if you want to bounce around a couple of the big names that have been given a certain responsibilities. Minister Champagne remains the Minister of Finance and National Revenue. Dominic LeBlanc, President of the Privy Council, and the Minister responsible for Canada-US trade. Of course, he's been working on that for one time. And the one Canadian economy. Interesting. We talk about interprovincial trade and the fact that there's 13 different economies in the country and the hope for there to be one Canadian economy. It's aspirational. But some I think, fascinating choices here in this particular cabinet itself. And then it's the notables who have been left out in full. I had a list of them here. Bill Blair is out. Jonathan Wilkinson is out. Karina Gould is out, which is interesting. She was House Leader, ran for the leadership. Jean-Yves Duclos, out. Mark Miller, out. They were big names. Oh, I said Bill Blair, yeah. So we could take on anything inside that world of federal politics, and where to from here, because campaigning is easy, governing is hard. All right, a couple of very quick ones, just for a bit of fun. It was on this date in 1998 that Seinfeld ran its finale. And it was a bit of a strange storyline, maybe not the greatest finale in history, but a lot of people watched it. 76.3 million people tuned into the series finale of Seinfeld. Of course, the most watched American series finale of all time happened back in 1983, MASH. 105 million viewers. 77% of TVs, or people watching TV on that night, were watching MASH. Then Cheers, then The Fugitive, then Seinfeld. And hearty congratulations to Butlerville's very own Jacob Lewis. Absolutely amazing. He won. He won Canada's Got Talent. So that's just an amazing accomplishment for Jacob, who's, in addition to being a great young fella, or a great guy, is obviously a big talent. So this opens up his professional world as a musician. Huge. And $1 million. Thrilled for you, Jacob. Congratulations to you, my friend. And the very best luck to you in the future with your $1 million and with your career. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. I already said this man's name already. Top of the show. The CEO of Food First NL is Josh Smee. He kicks it off, and then we're speaking with you on a topic that's entirely up to you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin on line number one. Say good morning to the CEO at Food First NL. That's Josh Smee. Good morning, Josh. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much.
Can't say I'm surprised with the numbers, but they're startling to say the very least. Let's dig into probably the one that jumps off the page to me the most is children and single-parent families. What do we know?
Yeah, so this is a really rough one. 40%, so 2 in 5 of kids in the province are food insecure. Were in 2024 when this data was collected, and so that's unfortunately we're tied for top spot in Canada on that one, and that rolls over into single-parent families where just short of 60% of single-parent families are food insecure, which is a really, again, like you said, maybe not surprising number, but still shocking.
All right, so school lunch programs and Kids Eat Smart, and those things absolutely do help, but it's not the be-all and end-all. Obviously poverty is the number one contributor to being food insecure. The argument people will make, Josh, you hear this endlessly, as do I, is if we simply talk about putting more money in the hands of people, is where will they spend that? Will they address food insecurity, or will it be spent on other things, credit card bills, other bills, and or some of the vices that many of us have? So what's your response to that? Because you hear it all the time, because I certainly do.
Yeah, you hear it all the time, and I get where it's coming from, but the evidence actually suggests the exact opposite every time that this kind of thing gets done. So a good example is Canada Child Benefit, right? No one is telling you where to spend that money, but it really did make an impact on food insecurity for kids, and that's one way we could do better on this one is by increasing it, right? Whenever basic income pilots have been tried, we see that people spend the money on those basic necessities of life. We saw that with the pandemic, right? We saw lots of programs that were, for example, giving out grocery gift cards, and for the vast majority of times, those gift cards were used to buy what people needed. They're not getting spent frivolously, and what people need differs from house to house, obviously, but there's just not a lot of evidence that that any big part of that money goes the quote unquote wrong place. It works, and we know it works, but it's tough. We're pushing against, like you said, there's an attitude that's pretty deep-seated that we don't trust people, and we especially don't trust people who are low income to quote-unquote, spend their money right, and that's always a barrier.
So does that translate to, if the political will would come to bear, that it should really focus in on things like gift cards directly to be spent at grocery stores? What if you can get your children clothes? You can get some drug coverage. You can get food, obviously. So is that really the wisest political tool? Because they will be swimming upstream just like you and I are when we get the pushback about putting money in people's hands.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a place for those kind of gift card programs in kind of limited circumstances, right? So you see that happening. You know, you see, for example, in medical settings, you're getting more and more what you call food prescribing, where a doctor might see a patient, and the thing the patient needs is not medicine, but it's food. And so they're, quote unquote, prescribing, a gift card. I think in the bigger picture, though, we really want to get into get away from these targeted programs with lots of complex logistics, and you want to get at kind of those basic benefit programs. So how are we solving this the better way? It's looking at, the really basic things like income support, like the minimum wage, like Canada Child Benefit. We've already got the tools to deal with this. It's mostly just that the rates for the program kept up with what's going on in the world around them, right? So you don't have to really reinvent the wheel to move the needle on this one. And we know that the only province in the country that has ever successfully lowered food insecurity is Newfoundland and Labrador, between 2007 and 2011. We're the example that everyone looks at. So we know it can happen. It takes, like you said, political will, but I think there's lots of opportunity to do that, even just with the tools that are already on the table.
Yeah, and that was based on the poverty reduction plan, which was it was applauded. It was the gold standard right across the country. I don't want to leave seniors out. Let's dig into that just a little bit. Seniors, the trend is going the wrong way too, which, we could talk about the basic income for ages 60 to 64, talk about dealing with the thresholds to qualify for things like the guaranteed income supplement, more money in more people's hands. So give us the numbers for seniors.
Yeah, so seniors, it's interesting. The trends are going in the wrong direction. You're right. Like, seniors are getting more food insecure than they were, but seniors are still the least likely group of any population group to be food insecure. So that's one way you think about it is, I think, we're pretty aware of, how much seniors are struggling, and that's partially because we maybe pay more attention to it. We have a connection with seniors in our lives who are going through tough stuff. So when you think about the seniors and how much they're struggling, and then think that is the group that is least likely to be struggling in the whole population. So working age adults and kids are much more likely to be food insecure because seniors do have access to a basic income of sorts, right? With old age security and the GIS. It's not perfect for sure, but to be honest with you, if we wanted to move the needle on food insecurity, it's actually not necessarily seniors that you'd try and support first, because they have a stronger set of programs than lots of other people in the population, and that also is a little bit of a kind of hard sell from a political perspective sometimes.
I know you got to run. Any final message before we let you go?
Yeah, I just think this is a good year to be paying attention to this stuff. We have 2 municipal elections, provincial elections coming up, and we should watch what these numbers show next year, because in 2023 to 24, the province did roll out a bunch of poverty reduction programs and policies, and those will start showing up in the data, about this time next year. And so if we're back on the phone in a year's time and having the same conversation, that is a huge red flag.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that red flag is at shoulder height, being ready to fly. Josh, good to have you on the show. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me, Patty.
Pleasure. Bye-bye. That's Josh Sweeney, the CEO at Food First NL. I mean, we can't ignore the numbers. I mean, just think about it. Over a third of the children in the province are food insecure. Single-parent families, those numbers are absolutely staggering. And it is a complicated issue, but maybe sometimes we overcomplicate it because of the politics of it as opposed to the policy of it. Let's take a break. When we come back, Donald's there to talk about new drivers, and then we're going to talk about Culture Night coming up out in Mount Pearl at O'Donnell Senior High, and then Kevin wants to talk about the 2 distinct seasons we have here in the province: winter and construction. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Kevin, you're on the air.
How you doing, Patty?
Doing okay. How about you?
Not bad. Just a little annoyed about the new season coming up.
Construction season.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of it.
In Newfoundland, so I'm sure, as I was saying, in Newfoundland, there's only 2 seasons: winter and construction.
Feels like it sometimes. Yeah.
What really annoys me about this is most of the provinces in Canada do their construction at night, and why the government here can't get their stuff organized to have them do it here at night. It blows my mind, especially with this day and age.
They gave it a shot. There was a pilot project a few years back about night road work being done and then testing different chemical compounds for asphalt. The end result, I'll try to remember the numbers accurately here, it costs about 32% more to do it at night. And there was a variety of factors that were quoted as to why that was the case. But look, I have no problem with it, especially in a place like, for instance, Kemount Road. To do it at night makes all the sense in the world. Would taxpayers of the province be willing to pay a premium to not have their daily commute interrupted? Maybe. But same thing with snow clearing. If you want better snow clearing, it's going to cost more. Road work at night is going to cost more. So, I don't know. I'm a bit torn on it. I don't really want to pay more for the road work to be done. But I don't
either. But with today, the price of today's stuff is people are being probably greedy and charging. But why other provinces can do it? Like, why we can't? It just blows my mind. Like a few dollars extra, I'm sure it won't matter. Especially if it's, I mean, yes, they can't avoid all delays on the road, but sometimes you're stuck in these traffic jams for could be almost half an hour or an hour. And I have half an hour. I've been in one last summer. I was in for half an hour trying to get through. I
spent 35 minutes in one on Major's Path last year. 35 minutes.
There's no need, though. There's no need of it. It's just it blows my mind, like with today's technology, with this day and age. All right?
Yeah, at the time when the results of the pilot were released, we did follow up with a couple of provinces, notably New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, about their night paving. They reported similar additional costs, not quite as high as was reported here in this province, but I guess I can go back to that well, considering we are in construction season. But I'm trying to recall exactly the info I was given by Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, but they did indeed report that it was also more expensive than daytime work. But I'm going to chase that again, see where we are.
Why is theirs not so expensive as ours is? Why can they do it for cheaper and when this province can't?
Don't know. It's an excellent question.
Right. One quick other item before I go. On May the 5th, it was put out. There's a group on Facebook called Beware Drivers in Newfoundland or something. I can't remember the exact title now.
Okay.
But on May the 5th, somebody was driving in Gander and they caught on their dash cam. There was a large dump truck swerving all over the road on May the 5th. So they called the police and called ahead, and the driver was nodding off because they'd seen him, like the driver was nodding off and everything. So the police finally caught up with it. They pulled the truck over, and they done their very poor assessment because they let him go. And then in Corner Brook down the road, the same truck had a crash. So you talk about, like you were talking about earlier, about road safety and people speeding and all that stuff. Yes, and I know that some people do excessive speeding. You know, we all do a little bit over. But sometimes I think the police are picking the wrong battles. The RCMP in Corner Brook, or that Gander area, they let this guy go, and this was on NTV News, right? I mean, that's absolutely appalling. That guy could have killed dozens of people.
He could have.
But the police let him go.
So
right?
what contributed to the accident in Corner Brook? I don't know the story.
But the Corner Brook, the guy was in the dump truck, the same dump truck they pulled over in Gander area. It's on the group, and NTV News reported it on May the 5th that the dump truck driver was swerving all over the road. And when the truck finally had an accident in Corner Brook after the police let him go earlier in the highway, maybe Grand Falls area, Gander, but they found drugs in the truck, right? The same truck that the police pulled over a while ago and let the guy go, and they pulled him over like maybe several miles back. They pulled him over. I'm just saying, you were talking about road safety. I'm just thinking that's absolutely appalling. The damage of the lives it could have killed because of that.
100%. I don't know the story, but I'll see if I can figure. So, are you saying that he was pulled over in Central and they let him go, even though he might have been under the influence and the drugs were not seen, or?
Right. That's right. There was nothing done, but this truck was witnessed on dash cam, and people called the police ahead of time, and they pulled him over around Gander area or Grand Falls. And they let him go again. The police let him go, and the same truck later crashed in Corner Brook. And when they done an assessment in Corner Brook, they found drugs in the truck. But the same truck was seen in the Gander Grand Falls area, swerving all over the road and almost caused 6 collisions. And the police, RCMP, let him go, and he caused the crash. But you can imagine the amount of lives that big truck could have killed.
100%.
Because.
Yeah.
So the RCMP are talking about picking on people that's doing maybe 10 or 20 kilometers over. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not justifying that. But the RCMP who was supposed to be excellent cops, let this guy go, and he crashed. Just what blows my mind is the amount of people he could have killed.
Yes, I know.
And the police
I heard
let
that
him go.
Yeah, I'll give that a chase as well. But I absolutely will go back to the well about the night paving costs. I'll just stick with Atlantic Canada because that's probably the best comparison we can use. And I appreciate your time, Kevin. Thanks for calling.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's keep rolling. Let's go to line number 3 and take a word to Andrew Simpson, a grade 12 student at O'Donnell High. Is also the student body president and joins us on line number 3. Andrew, you're on the air.
Hello, Patty.
Hello there. Congratulations, Mr. President.
Thank you. I'm just calling now because I like to advertise a cultural night that our school is putting off tomorrow, Thursday, March 15th.
Go right ahead. So what's going to be happening at Culture Night or Cultural Night?
So it's going to start around 6:30, and we have a lot of students. Obviously, with the rise in diversity in the Mount Pearl, Newfoundland, Canada in general area, and especially at our school, we've seen a rise in diversity, and we just thought that we needed a time or an event to showcase it. So we invited all the students from all the different places in our school to just come into our school gym and show off their diversity and all their culture, their food, and everything that comes with the place that they're from.
Andrew, is this triggered or become a necessity because of some division or some inappropriate behavior or treatment of newcomers to the country, newcomers to the province?
Yeah, absolutely not.
Okay,
we think
good.
that this is just a opportunity to increase the unity of the school and continue educating and awareness as well towards different cultures. But there's no issue at all in our school. We just feel like this is something else we can do on top of the things we already do.
So what will be featured, like different traditions or attire, food, dance? What will people see?
All of that, actually. We got a lot of students. Like we have students from a bunch of continents and countries, and there's going to be all that from every sector of their culture. Food, dress, like you said, all that. So we're also going to have we have our NL Studies class doing a Newfoundland exhibit for them. So we're going to have Newfoundland music playing. We're going to have all the international students. We're going to screech them in, obviously not with actual alcohol. We'll use purity syrup. But it's going to be a really fun time.
So can you give us an idea of what countries will be represented at Cultural Night?
So we have all the countries from kids from our school. So we have a lot of kids from Germany, Somalia, Spain, Italy, Mexico, Philippines, Ukraine. Obviously, it's all-encompassing. We have a lot of I'm surprised by 20 is the number I actually have in front of me here of the different cultures and countries. I'm just surprised by how much the reach is. Right, it's all over the world. It's multiple continents. And it's honestly amazing, just the amount of diversity we have here.
So we know what people are going to see and the things they're going to hear. So is it open to the general public, or who's eligible to go?
Absolutely. Everyone in our community is allowed to come. And we believe it's going to be an important event, not just for our school to spread diversity, sense of community, unity, but for the whole Mount Pearl, Southland, St. John's area to just continue on with the awareness and improvements we've made in our society over the past decades.
Is there a cost to attend, Andrew?
Sorry?
Is there a cost to attend?
No, there is no cost to attend. Free right at the door. Come in. We got a lot of food. You get your money's worth of $0.
Good man. Before I let you go, just on a personal note, what's the plans for after grade 12?
For me?
Yeah.
I am doing a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Economics at Memorial University.
Good for you, Andrew. Thanks for letting us know about Cultural Night. Hopefully it's a roaring success, and good luck to you and your fellow students at O'Donnell.
Thank you, Patty. I'd also like to extend an invite to you.
Terrific. I appreciate it. So what time is it? I didn't even ask you that.
Yeah, we got fish and brews and baked beans for you here.
Delicious. What time does it all start, Andrew?
6:30. It's from 6:30 to 8:30.
If I can get
March
there,
15th.
yeah. If I can get there, I'll stop in and say hello. And I really appreciate your time this morning.
All right. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure. All the best. Right.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Andrew Simpson, grade 12 student at O'Donnell, is student body president. Great stuff. Let's take a break. When we get back, Jim's here to talk about wildfires. We're off to a pretty fiery start for this particular season. We're over 60 already. Oh, and then the lady who was just there, Donna, about new drivers, I'd like to get her back too, because of a good conversation we had about seatbelts. So those two, and then you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let us go. Line number 2. Donna, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you?
Okay, thanks. You?
Good. I want to talk about the new drivers, and it could be new Canadians as well. I'm just throwing that out there. I noticed on a few occasions where I'll give you one specific first. I've seen a bunch of people get into a vehicle, and an afterthought was to put the child in. The child was not in a car seat. There was 5 people in a car, and that child was put in with absolutely no restraint. That was number one. The second one was this morning. I'm a school bus driver, by the way. I was behind a person driving a vehicle, and on the back it said, new driver, in brackets, caution. And I'm looking at him, I'm okay, I'll stay back, And when I was observing in the back seat, there was this child bouncing around in the back seat of the car, not in a seatbelt, not in a car seat. And I'm just like, how is this even acceptable, like for a parent to allow their child to be in the back seat, especially in this day and age where, a lot of people don't even stop at a red light. They'll go through a red light. And, that person can very easily be a part of an accident, and it's like they don't take into consideration the child in the back seat when they're driving.
Well, number one, that is absolutely ridiculous, and that is, as a parent myself, I cannot understand the mindset behind that, period. I think you're obliged by law as a new driver. I think it's for the first year to have novice driver in the back window.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's the rule there. But, insofar as seatbelts go, look, it's pretty irresponsible for anybody to be in a car without a seatbelt. Not only is it against the law, but the evidence is clear about the likelihood of being hurt or killed if you don't have your seatbelt on versus having it on, let alone when we're talking about our children. Come on.
A child.
Yeah, no, I get it.
A child in the back seat, it blew my mind that this person, and I was behind him, and he was taking these turns. He was in a hurry, and you knew he was in a hurry, and that child was almost rolling in the back seat, and it was in my head. It's okay, do I pull over, call the RNC, report this? Would this person even be caught at this point? Should I take his information? What is the likelihood that he's going to get fined? Or, it's going to be my word against this person's word unless, I have a camera on my bus, which I don't. But, you kind of look at that and you're like, that child is in his parents' hands and his parents is a reckless driver, So where do you go? Where's the RNC? What is my role as a driver, somebody that's concerned? What's my role for that child?
That's a good question. I suppose, like everything that we see out there that could be considered dangerous or against the law, we all have the opportunity to report it. But then, of course, you're on a school bus route. You're not going to be able to follow this car around. You're not going to be able to ensure that the police respond to it. But it's always worthwhile at least reporting what you see for the obvious reasons. I'm kind of caught off guard by the fact that someone's willing to put their child at such risk in the back seat. Even a very simple quick braking or an abrupt braking or a small collision, that kid can become a torpedo. And,
yep. Absolutely.
Anyway, it's shocking. I will add to it, and this is not what you were talking about, but the issue, even with people with their dogs, Look, of course, it's probably worthwhile to put your dog in a seat on a harness as well, but having the dog bouncing around on drivers' laps as they try to navigate the roads is also
hanging
something.
Out the window.
Yeah, I mean, the hanging out the window, if you're in the back seat and maybe tethered onto something, fair enough, because the dogs love it, I guess. But jumping around on the front seat or jumping around on the driver's lap itself, I don't know why people allow that either. I know we all love our dogs and, having a bit of fun, but that fun can be pretty dangerous.
It can, and you're catering to a dog, and at this point, like small dogs, I see them, Shih Tzus and everything, rubbing the driver's arms. They're small enough to put them in a little dog kennel and put it in the back seat, without taking up too much room. You don't have to have this poor dog in your arms, because that dog can shoot right out a window, and gone, right? But there's something else too I wanted to bring up. Andrew, when he was talking about this gathering for diversity,
yep.
I think that's an amazing, amazing idea. I have a school bus full of diverse children from everywhere, and they're beautiful. I absolutely love my kids, love them. So for Andrew and other students to do that, that's amazing. And people should take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's a good initiative. I'm glad he called to tell us about it this morning. And thanks for telling us about what you're seeing out there too, Donna. Keep up the good, safe work as a school bus driver.
Yeah, I will. And I mean, if an RNC officer can get on and or somebody get on and explain what we can do, what our role is as a concerned driver, what we can do to alert the RNC what's happening and, what the response time might be or whatever, that'd be great.
Quick question. Do you, as the school bus driver, experience people passing you with your stop sign and deployed and the lights on?
Yes, all the time. I actually had a guy do it to me yesterday, and I burnt my horn at him. I'm like, pay attention. My sign is out, and he looks at me. He's driving by, and he's like, sorry. No, don't be sorry. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
It's pretty fundamental.
Yeah, and people are still doing it, and I'm throwing that out there. If you're doing it, stop. Because we're going to, there's a lot of us drivers, we take your license plate number, make a model of your vehicle, and you could be brought to court, just to let you know.
Do we think that there should be cameras on school buses? We talk about it as a part of the supervising the children, but of course, some people have a problem with that. But do you think we should have cameras, mandatory cameras, whether it be installed by the operators or subsidized by the government or whatever, on the front and the back of school buses so that we can maybe knock some of these occurrences down?
I think a government subsidy would be beautiful to put on, like, the front of buses. That's where you're going to catch them, is when the stop sign comes out and they're passing. If you can get a picture, like on both sides of the license plate and the make and model of that vehicle, then that kind of, that's documented. That's absolute proof, But for that to happen anytime soon, I don't know. It's like we're still trying to get the traffic cams in, for speeders, but. It'd be great if we could put that on the buses, too. That'd be awesome. Yeah,
and we're talking about some pretty precious cargo. Don, yeah. I appreciate your time. I'm off to the news, but thanks for calling the program.
Thank you, Patty. I hope you have a great day, and everyone out there, stay safe.
You too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, let's take a break. Jim, appreciate your patience, sir. We're going to speak to Jim about the wildfires. Pat wants to chime in on the provincial election, which we have to have by October, and then whatever you want to talk about right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Jim, you're on the air.
Oh, hi. Good morning, Patty. Thank you so much for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Patty, this call was spurred by a gentleman you had on there on Friday talking about the state of our forests and because of the fire in the Adams Cove, Western Bay area there, and the expense and the upset that has entailed and occasioned, and now the province are thinking about, compensation, what can they do to help. But this is a lot like locking the door after the horse is gone, or that ship has already sailed. We have a government here that for generations has not had to have any policy in relation to maintenance of forest, and there hasn't been any in the province except for areas like Corner Brook, Gander, Grand Falls, where the paper mills are located. And in those areas, the paper companies took the responsibility, and you never saw large, terrifying fires like the one in Adams Cove. So it's not a matter of our government now rethinking policy in relation to forests. It's a matter of about time to get around to thinking about it. This is new thinking which, because of global warming, needs to be addressed. Our forests now are a terrible state. I've walked every area out around Samuel Line, all down in Deer Park, all that area, Colnet, all those areas in there. And to get to a salmon river out there, or do some grouse hunting in the fall of the year, you're taking your life in your hands trying to find a pathway through the woods. There is windfall totally everywhere. Now, this forest fire in Adams Cove area, Western Bay area, one of the people there said the fire was traveling faster than a person could run. Well, given the right conditions, that is what is going to happen. And the concern here now for the government and for the Premier and for Bernard Davis, the Minister of Public Safety, should be, what are we going to do to prevent this? The old truism, an ounce of prevention is worth many pounds of cure. But we don't have a policy. And if somebody were to walk through the woods down in the area of Deer Park, and that Adams Cove fire started down in that area, it wouldn't be 20 structures that would burn. There would be hundreds there. And the concern here for the government, if I were Premier or sitting where Bernard Davis is sitting, is what are we going to say to people when lives are going to be lost? Because you cannot outrun a forest fire down in those conditions. Half the forest down on the Samuel Line is on the ground. You have all these large blocks of land down there, and a lot of it, Paddy, is private land because the government years ago, gave out these blocks of land of hundreds of acres, and once the box is gone, then it's somebody else's responsibility until it isn't. But with global warming now, we can't allow this to happen anymore. We need the government now to focus on prevention, not what can we do to try and address it once the fire is underway. And I know all those areas very well. I walked them, and my son has walked them grouse hunting in the fall of the year. And if the grouse comes off the ground, well, forget trying to follow it, because you can't follow it. The whole forest is down on the ground out there. So if that Adams Cove fire started on the Samuel Line in the Deer Park area, it would be far more intense, and given the right conditions, which primarily is, wind and arid conditions, that fire could come and wipe out down the Holy Wood. So the amount of foreseeable damage and loss of life here is absolutely terrifying to myself.
I'm with you. So I've talked about this for years here on the show, mostly because I actually did it for a job when I lived in Jasper, Alberta for a few summers. That's what we did. Every day we put on our chaps and our eye protection and our earmuffs, and we got our chainsaws. We went in the woods to do exactly that, cutting down the fire load, all the windfall. That was all we did, and to haul it out of there. And that was a Parks Canada directive. And I've been trying to find out what the formal process is here, whether it be to build fire breaks around communities, and whether we have an actual formal strategy for dealing with the windfall or the fire load, as people refer to it, because you're 100% right. That is the most dangerous part of a forest fire, because once it falls, it dries, and consequently, it's the kindling, and it does indeed add enormous fuel to the fire. So I'm still trying to find out exactly what we do on that front.
Penny, you're absolutely right. Now, you consider those fires in California last year. They were in leafy trees, deciduous trees. our forests here are all evergreens.
All coniferous, yeah.
And all the conifers. And there's been no logging. Years ago out in St. Mary's Bay area, inside Colonnade, there was a huge sawmill operation. That's been gone now for generations there. So there's been absolutely no thought given to the woods. And if you're sitting in Confederation Building or in the 8th floor or whatever floor you're on there, you have no cognition about what's going on out in these areas. So, it's absolutely terrifying that the government hasn't given any thought to this point about a policy of prevention.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And I mean, it's becoming more and more clear. I mean, just look at the dry conditions that we're experiencing right around the island and most parts of Labrador. We had a very light snow load this particular past winter, and so that's going to exacerbate the issues on the ground. We've already had over 60 wildfires reported already this year. I think the high water mark last year was 93, so we're well on pace to have a potentially dangerous, and fingers crossed we don't, but a potentially dangerous wildfire season. So, Jim, I'm going to get the department to come on as soon as possible to tell us exactly what the strategies are that you describe, because that is a hugely important part of this conversation.
Yes, Betty, and if the government needs to bring in some forest experts, from the Atlantic provinces or from somewhere out west who've been practicing this for generations, then so be it. That's a whole lot cheaper than trying to remedy afterward, and particularly when people's lives are at risk here.
Yep. I think you're 100% right.
Well, Penny, thank you very much for taking my time. Just want to raise the alarm, which that gentleman raised, with you last Friday, and hopefully the government will address it soon.
I agree with you, and I'm going to try to get them on as soon as possible. I really appreciate your time, Jim.
Thank you very much, Penny.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, Jim's right. Let's take a break. Pat, you're next to talk about the provincial election. Ross is in the queue to talk about the Conservative leadership. I assume is that provincial or federal? I guess we'll find out. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Pat. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty. Hope all's well with yourself.
Doing fine, thanks.
Anyway, we all know that in Newfoundland, and I hope I have my understanding right, but I believe to the latest information I have, we have to go to the polls in Newfoundland no later than October 14th, 2025. So, based on that, my question is, and I'm going to let you then have the floor. My question is, are we going to see a major announcement, something like a Gull Island, which Fury previously tried and might have campaigned on if it had to go more successful? Are we going to see some major announcement out there in the next 3-4 weeks, and then a sudden race to the poll and we get it done before summer comes? Or are the Liberals going to take their chances? Because that's what it basically is. You take the chances. You wait till the last minute, till it's forced on you that you have to call it, and the outcome is what the outcome is. Anyway, your opinion, Patty, you have the floor.
Sure. It won't be Gull. That much we know. Gull is covered inside the most recent signing of that Memorandum of Understanding with the province of Quebec and Hydro-Quebec. The decision whether or not Gull gets developed is firmly in their hands. So if that's announced, it won't be by this province, it'll be by Quebec. So that's one thing. I mean, it's never surprising when there's some major policy announcement made as a precursor to an election call. Whether that's going to happen now, I don't know. And nor do I really have a good sense of when they're going to call an election. If it's going to be before the school lets out, well, that's got to be called right away, because there's a certain amount of time that you have to allow for a campaign.
Exactly. That's my point. That's one of my points. Thank you.
Yeah, so the short answer for me is it won't be Gull. Might it be something else? Possibly, whether that be, maybe something about Bull Arm or the like, maybe, just maybe, but it's really hard to say. But I mean, if it's going to be about an election call with some big policy, that's got to come ASAP. If not, we're going to absolutely be into the fall, because calling an election during the summer, I think, is a problem. I know there's got to be some gap between municipal elections and the provincial election for obvious reasons, volunteers and, voter fatigue and that type of Christmas stuff. But I'm thinking that we're going to the polls in the fall. I might be wrong, but that's what I think.
Thank you very much. Other than the fall, which I don't know where to think, I'm thinking something coming down the lines in the next 3-4 weeks. But other than that, we're on both on the exact same page. If you're going to, it has to be before the kids in the summer, and it doesn't happen very often during the summer. And if that's the case, a major announcement or something is going to come down the pipeline. And I'm just trying to figure out what that's going to be. If there's a major announcement, no doubt to help try to get them elected, this sugar tax was one consideration, because the PCs have been campaigning on that since it was introduced. Eliminated. So no doubt that was trying to get a little bit of favoritism back. But it's not a major campaign issue. It's not something you can go to the polls on.
No.
Put it that way, Patty.
No, I don't think so either. It's pretty small potatoes. It was just sort of an irritant, I think, for folks, because now that the evidence is clear, it didn't work as it was intended to work, and yet the government has harvested, over $30 million worth of the sugar tax into the provincial coffer. So, I mean, it'll get a headline for a day, and I don't think it's a big deal. It's, as you said, and I think you're right, you can't go to the polls on the sugar tax.
Sugar tax only done one thing, in my opinion, but I could be wrong. Let's hear your opinion. I think the sugar tax hastened, if that's the right word, the introduction. You see all of these on the shelves now, and they're better than they were before. I don't believe they don't have sugar, Patty, because don't take nothing like back years ago when it almost failed. It's ruination for Coke. They came out with this zero sugar Coke product that everybody hated in the 80s or 90s. Now you're seeing on the shelves all of these zero sugar options in Newfoundland since the sugar tax was put on in Newfoundland and put on in some other province. So, in my opinion, that's the only thing I've seen out of it. It has in this relabeling, and they say they're sugar-free, but what's in them, I don't know. It has in these products of that nature.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, I don't think that that's a new to this province sort of thing. All of the major manufacturers of all these types of beverages, they know that there is a mental shift towards, less sugar. But the fact of the matter is, inside of some of these, like Coke Zero or Diet Coke and whatnot, they're using what they call, I can't pronounce one of the words. It's cellophane.
Aspartame.
An aspartame. Yeah.
Sorbitol.
Yeah, so it gets an artificial sweetener, which may be just as bad for you as sugar.
They'll use something, some sugar substitute. Splenda. You're still there?
I'm listening.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So yeah, how healthy those are for us? That's a big question. Anyway, I'm going to leave it on that, Patty, and end with one thing. Great, tremendous. Back in the day, you used to say throw a bouquet out. So I guess it's bouquet or whatever you put it on the radio these days. To the volunteer firefighters out in the Adams Cove and that area, look at people if you want to see what we get, and these are volunteers, unpaid people, what they do for us in some of these communities and how we take care of our own. Look at Eugene Hell. He's a person out in that area, a photographer, a bit of a comedian too, in my opinion, but he takes great photos. I've watched photos where all four sides of a house, how is that house still standing? But it's because the firefighters went in and volunteers and kept hoses constantly on that house, constantly to save it, at the expense of possibly, battling try to beat the fire down. So congratulations to them and bouquets or whatever you say, because without them, we might have lost. A lot might have been lost, but a lot more would have been lost.
No question. I appreciate the time, Pat. Thanks for calling.
One other comment, and a dig at the Liberals. For God's sake, guys, like when something like that happened, bring in the satellite phones, bring in something. There were so many people that I know that for 3 days, people were trying to reach out and worried about loved ones. Did they survive? Did we heard there was no losses. But where are you? Are you okay? There was no phone and cell phone services in the area, and trying to reach out to people. That needs to change. There needs to be cell phones or satellite phones or something in these communities. Policy needs to change because there's no very bad cell phone service down that southern shore, down the our Conception Bay shore. Thanks, Patty.
No problem, Pat. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Will I start off, Ross, here? Yeah, let's keep going. Hey, Dave, what do you think? Yeah, let's go. Line number 5. Ross, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Patty.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm all confused now over the federal election we just had. Pierre Poilievre was leader of the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
So in the election, he lost his seat. So he has to step down as leader of the opposition. And in the meantime, I believe Andrew Scheer is the interim leader now. Poilievre has to go get reelected in another district.
Yeah, well, he's going to run in a by-election in Battle River Crowfoot. A guy named Damien Corrick stepped away after winning, and I think he won with 82% of the vote, so pretty safe seat for Mr. Poilievre to run in. But he's still the leader of the party, but Mr. Scheer will take on the role as so-called leader in the House. So he'll be the leader in the House, but Mr. Poilievre remains at the helm of the party.
Okay. But Mr. Poilievre could he not sit in the House right now as things are happening, or he has to step down if he's going into an election? This is where I'm confused.
No, he doesn't have to do anything necessarily, but he cannot sit in the House of Commons because that's reserved for people who actually have a seat in the House of Commons.
Okay, now that leads to the next question to you.
Yep.
Mr. Carney was an advisor for Mr. Trudeau. Mr. Carney was never elected to any seat. He was elected by the Liberal Party of Canada by 133 votes to be their House leader. He was then the Governor General swore him in as the Prime Minister of Canada.
Yep.
So he went from a private citizen who was non-elected, never ran in an election in his life, to the top job as the Prime Minister of Canada, sworn in everything is legal, but an opposition leader who leaves his seat cannot sit in the House of Commons. This is what's got me really confused, Patty.
Well, I understand that confusion. The fact of the matter is that is absolutely how the Westminster parliamentary system works and what's allowed. Had the Prime Minister, had Mark Carney won the Liberal leadership, there was 133,000 Liberals registered to vote, I believe it was, and he won a commanding victory. Had the House been open at that time, even if he was sworn in by the Governor General, he would not be able to sit in the House. So the fact that the House was closed or prorogued at the time allowed him to take on the role. Yeah.
Okay, that explains a lot to me. So, what I get out of this now is that the sitting government at the time had a reason why they did what they did, so they could get this to work.
Absolutely. Prorogation has been used as a political tool. It's unfair to us, the voter, as far as I'm concerned. Now, the problem with all that, Ross, is if we want to change the rules, we actually got to open up the Constitution again, which is always going to be a real messy affair. But the way it's been used, whether it be by Harper and or Trudeau, is unfair. It was simply to dodge the electorate and to dodge opposition parties and confidence votes.
Yeah, I got you. It's making sense to me now, Patty. I really appreciate it. But, at this day and age now, after witnessing our government being prorogued for like almost 6 months, at probably the most important time in our whole history, I think the Constitution, they should be sitting down and rewriting this so that Canada never gets put in the position that it was put in from December till now. Like, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, now it hasn't been prorogued for 6 months, but in essence, for the first 3 months of that 6 months, they weren't doing anything in Parliament. There was a standoff based on the unwillingness of the government to release the unredacted documents about what people call the money and the green slush fund, as people refer to it. So, we were accomplishing nothing, and then government got prorogued, and here we are.
Yeah, I know, but it put us in some mess, Paddy, because we didn't really have a sitting government for when the U.S. turned on us. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, that answers my question. I appreciate that.
I appreciate the time.
Also, the previous caller you had, like, spoke about bull arm or whatever.
I made mention of that, yeah.
Yeah. You know, Paddy, there's only 3 or 4 shipyards in the world capable of handling oil rigs and everything. Like, my sister worked on oil rigs for 20-odd years, right? And she's had to go to the Netherlands and come back on oil rigs and blah, blah, blah. There is a 2-year waiting list to have a floating base or an oil rig service in the world. 2-year waiting list. And we have Bull Arm out there, as modern a facility as anywhere in the world, sitting mothballed most of the time.
Well, it's pretty active.
That might be something for the government to consider. Going after something like this. Like the Bull Arm could be going 24/7, 365 days a year, and the work is out there. It's just the initiative of somebody to seek it out. But right now, if you had an oil rig, just say off the coast of Newfoundland, and you need to have it serviced, you're on a 2-year waiting list to get that done, and then you're going to have to cross the Atlantic to get the service work done to bring it up to par for the following time, right? So, Bull Arm is a facility equal to anything in the world, and for that to be mothballed and sitting like it is absolutely ridiculous. Like, there could be thousands of people employed there at year-round.
Yeah, I don't know if it can do all of the work that some of the yards, say, for instance, in Spain, where the Terra Nova FPSO was, and one of the big yards in South Korea, and the other one in Ireland. I don't know if it has capacity to take all that on, but it certainly has more. Curiously, it's right now, Narl, with North Atlantic, and DF Barnes are both putting their best foot forward to see whether or not they can take over operations, ownership, and or lease Bull Arm, because they'll be super aggressive as a private sector company to bring in the business. So, I think that's probably going to happen sooner than later.
Yeah, I hope so, because that's a beautiful facility out there. I've never been there, but it has the technology equal to anything in the world. I know the Terra Nova that was off the shore of Newfoundland, my sister came across that when it came back from I believe it was in the Netherlands somewhere. It was refitted years and years ago, Paddy. And actually, at the time, there was an older gentleman on board, and he had been on the 7 seas and all the oil rigs in the world. And he told my sister, he kept a log of it. He said, "You know something?" He said, "I think you're the first female that crossed the Atlantic on an oil rig." Because he had been at it for his whole lifetime, and he wrote journals all the time about all these trips that he did, hey? And he said to her one time, he said, he said, "I think you're the first female come across the Atlantic on an oil rig that he knew of," right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I didn't call to talk about the oil rigs, but it sure would be nice if we could get that Bull Arm up and running. Like, we got a facility there that is equal to anything in the world, and it's a sin to have it sitting mothballed.
Certainly appreciate the time, Ross. Thanks for the call.
Yes, thanks for the information, Paddy. Appreciate it very much. You cleared me up on the political side of it, and I had no intentions of talking about Bull Arm, but when the previous caller mentioned it, I had to say that.
I'm glad you did. Thanks for your time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
You too, sir. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, let's take a break. James, you're next. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, James. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How's it going, buddy?
Great today. How about you?
Good, bud. Good listening to your show.
Thanks.
Yes, I just got I won't take up your time. I know you're busy, but my issue is that yesterday I was driving down Waterford Bridge Road, and it was a motorized bicycle on the road, in the middle of the road, actually, taking up, I had to go around and veer off into the oncoming traffic. So I don't know if there's any policy or regulations about them having insurance, or they shouldn't even be on the road, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if they hit you, you got to go through insurance and all that, and obviously they don't have insurance. So I think they should stay off the road, to be honest with you. I mean, I understand it was electric, even electric at that. You don't see too many of them around anyway, but...
There's a lot to that. Someone called about this exact thing sometime last summer, I recall, and I had a look around. For starters, it's not classified as a motor vehicle under the Highway Traffic Act, number one, so it consequently doesn't require insurance and or a license. And the reason that I was told at that time is the e-bike itself, the boost that it gets from the battery is meant to complement you actually pedaling. So because it's not a full-fledged motor-powered vehicle, that means it does not require license and insurance. I'm not justifying it, but that was the answer I was given. So if you modify the e-bike to make it go faster or whatever the case may be, add more power, it can indeed at that point be mandatory listed and classified as a powered motor vehicle. Then things change. But as it stands today, it's apparently a complement to pedaling, and so it doesn't fall under the current definition of motor vehicle. Maybe it should, because they're pretty quick and they're in traffic, very much unlike someone who's providing nothing but leg power, pedal power to get the bike going. So it's an interesting one, but I did chase that with the insurance companies and with the Highway Traffic Act, and it's simply because it's not a full-fledged powered vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, even not necessarily electric, but you have those gasoline ones
you do.
That are out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see why it's not considered a motorized operated vehicle, like a motorcycle. It's no difference, really, but...
It's because they're flirting over...
Like, so many claims goes in, there's only a matter of time it's going to get rectified. It's like anything else. Something got to happen before it gets taken care of, I guess.
You're probably right, but even the gas-powered bikes, they still have the ability to pedal. Now, I think we're probably going to figure out, as you rightfully point out, until something happens, no adjustments are going to be made, but they probably should be. If you are part of the traffic and able to, drive, say, with residential area speed, then why shouldn't you have to be insured, just like I am? That's an absolutely fair question. Now, pedal bikes with the proper kind of biker and the level of fitness and the style of bike, they can go pretty quick as well driving around town, but it's completely different kettle of fish. But I don't disagree with you at all. They're out there, and there's lots of them out there these days too.
Mm-hmm. No, that's all I had to mention. It's just something that should be, taken into consideration. Like you said, you have been talking about it in the past, so maybe we'll see some changes in the future, I guess. Yeah,
possibly so, and maybe rightfully so. I certainly appreciate the time, James. Thanks for doing it.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Take care.
All the best.
Oh, and congratulations to Jacob Lewis. I wanted to say that too.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is. It's good for him. Good for his family too.
His life just changed. He's got twin little boys as well. Just to throw that out there. But that exposure for his own potential professional career and $1 million. I'm thrilled for him. Yeah. Good for him.
That's good. Well deserved.
Yes, sir.
Okay, buddy. You take care.
You too, man. Bye-bye. I went a little bit long with Ross, and I kind of got to get back on track here. James King is in the news. He's got an extremely painful skin condition, and he's not able to get any support from MCP to travel out of province to see it or to have it dealt with. James is also there. Leanne Lewis is the executive director at the Pottle Centre. We know that May is Mental Health Month, so of course they do extraordinary work for people with addiction issues, mental health. So they've got something coming up in Bowring Park at the end of the month. We'll speak with Leanne about what's happening at the Pottle Centre and what's shaking on the 31st of May out at Bowring Park, and then we'll speak with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the Executive Director at the Pottle Centre. That's Leanne Lewis. Good morning, Leanne. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Excellent today. Thanks for asking. How about you?
I'm great.
Terrific. So before we get into what's happening out in Bowring Park on the 31st of May, for people who are not familiar with the Pottle Centre, an important conversation given that May is Mental Health Month, what goes on at your centre?
The Paddle Center has been in operation since 1980, and yet we are very well unknown. And so we provide social and recreational support for adults who live with mental health issues, illnesses, and addictions. So in simple terms, that means anybody in the province, typically in the St. John's area, might like to avail of our services, which are free. We have activities planned every single day, ranging from going for a walk to going to a movie or bowling, doing crafts, making jewelry, anything that can help improve mental health and keep people on a good path to their journey of becoming the best they can be.
So we talk about folks out there, and I was reminded by Vince Withers not that long ago that, we would talk about access to mental health care and services, the continuity of care, long-term access. And when people say that, it's so difficult to get some support, that sometimes people are convinced, well, there is no support, and consequently they don't reach out. But places like yours are that additional layer that people should be taking advantage of. It's not like being in the hands of a psychiatrist for the long-term access piece or the continuity of care, but this is an important cog in the wheel.
It is very important. There are so many times that we hear from people who say, I just didn't know where to go, I didn't know what to do, because, if you're not working or not in school, which are the two things that sort of guide us in our adult life, those things often help us to have a social life as well. So when you take those things out of the mix, you might be at home wondering, where do I go and what do I do? How do I spend my day? How do I have a fulfilling day? So we try to make everyone be able to have something to look forward to. And everything we do is not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but hopefully we have a variety of events that can help promote mental wellness among all the people. We don't have a waiting list. We don't advertise on buses or anything like that. So unfortunately, people are not going to hear about us very often, but we get less than $100,000 from our primary funder, which is the provincial government, and we're very grateful for that. But as you can imagine, $100,000 doesn't go very far. So in order to make our programs happen, we have to do a lot of fundraising, and we rely heavily on donations and support from the community. So if anyone is thinking about, donating or wondering how they can help, you can help us at the Paddle Center. So that would be fabulous.
Before we get into the fundraising and what's happening in the park at the end of the month, so insofar as, people volunteering at the centre or for some healthcare professionals to be employed there, is there a nurse on staff, and who does some of the wellness education pieces?
So we don't have a nurse on staff, but we do have a nurse who comes in through community health, and she's a primary health care clinic located on Campbell Avenue. But she comes here once every 2 weeks, and she can do assessments, and she can do referrals, and we actually do flu shot clinics and COVID shots, and then we do blood work for our members, and that usually happens once a month. So it's an easy way for them to get their blood work done if they need to. And, if you're on any sort of medication, you're going to be closely monitored and need that, blood work done very frequently. So it's a good opportunity for people to come down and do that. So she also does psycho-educational sessions. So it can be, things that she thinks that would be of interest to the members. And the members can also suggest things that they would like to hear about. And we also work in conjunction with the Schizophrenia Society of Newfoundland and Labrador, and they are now located in the new Mental Health and Addictions Hospital, but they come in once a week to do peer support with our group, and our members love it. They absolutely love it.
So the social aspect, and whether it be going to the park or bowling or bingo or movies or playing cards, whatever the case may be, we understand the benefit of all of those things in the social aspect to deal with mental health related matters. But how do you approach folks who are dealing with addictions? Those things can be helpful, but an addiction is a different beast than would be a mental health concern.
It definitely is, so our program is structured so that, if you come here, you cannot be under the influence. So we realize that, that can be detrimental to some people, but knowing that if they come here and they can sort of get through their day and maybe push that having a drink or whatever the case may be for like 8 or 9 hours while they're here at the Pottle Center, and maybe it becomes a little easier. But as part of like their journey to recovery, this is just one small aspect of that. So in order to have a social life, sometimes the social life includes going downtown or going to a buddy's house to use whatever kind of drug. And we don't judge anybody for that. We know it's an addiction. We know it's part of mental health. But while people are here, they don't have that opportunity to do that here. And so the people who are here are like-minded folks. So hopefully they can help each other and peer support each other in their journey to recovery.
Sounds good to me. What's happening in Bowring Park on the 31st of this month?
The 31st of this month is Defeat Depression. It is a national event that goes on at different cities throughout the country. We partner with the Mood Disorder Society of Canada, and they're based out of Ontario. So we ask that participants register through the website of defeatdepression.ca, and you pick a location. So you pick St. John's, and you register. This year is different than previous years. It is actually free to register. We just need to know who's going. So we do ask that you register, even though there's no monetary amount associated with that. But if you do raise $150, we'll throw in a free T-shirt for each participant who raises $150. There are other incentives that we have as well to try to, get people grooving with this mental health event. We are hosting it starts at about 9:30, and then at 10 o'clock we'll have a couple of opening speeches. We're going to have a warm-up with Orange Theory Fitness. We're going to have some special guests, including Miss Newfoundland, and we will then present our mascot. So each year we have a possum mascot contest where we ask our friends and participants to vote in their favorite mascot. So this year our little mascot guy is a poodle named Fergus, and Fergus will be presented with some prizes and gifts and an opportunity for photos and that kind of thing. And we welcome other dogs as well. So anyone who wants to attend with their two-legged children or their four-legged children, we absolutely welcome anyone to come. A very much family event. And during all of this part of things, it shouldn't last too long, and then we're going to go for a walk at your leisure. Some people will run, other people will walk, and other people will roll, and that is okay. So there is a 5-kilometer route that we have mapped out, and for some people they might want to do the 2-kilometer, or they might just want to go for a brief walk in the park and feed the ducks or something like that and come back to where we are and have a snack with us. We'll be having cake this year because it's our 45th anniversary for the Pottle Center. This year marks our 45 years of operation, so we'll have cake this time, and we hope that people will just come out and recognize what we're doing in the community and make this a really great awareness activity as well as a fundraiser. Typically, our goal is $25,000, and we've come close to that almost every year we've had it. And at this point, going from now to the end of the month, which will be the event itself, we normally would have probably somewhere between $7,000 and $12,000 raised, and right now we're sitting at just over $2,000. So we got a long ways to go yet. So if anybody's interested in helping us out, we would gladly appreciate your help, whether you want to come volunteer at the event or volunteer with the Pottle Center on a semi-regular basis, or if you would like to donate, we would gladly accept any kind of help we can get.
What time does things get going on Saturday the 31st?
Around 10 o'clock, we're going to try to start the actual opening ceremony and warm-up.
If you want to know more about the Pottle Centre, if you'd like to make a donation, if you'd like to possibly volunteer on a semi-regular basis, you can get all the info right at their website. It's pottlecenter.org. Good to have you on the show, Leanne. Good luck.
I just want to throw out one more thing. Phone number is 709-753-2143. That number again is 709-753-2143. And it's myself, Leanne, or my coworker, Kelly. There's just two of us that work here. And we'll be glad to help you out if you have any questions or comments or anything like that. And also, congratulations to Jacob Lewis. No relation to me, but we're from the same area. Really good on him for winning that last night. What a talent.
Amazing stuff. Good to have you on the show, Leanne. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patty.
My
have
pleasure.
a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the news. When we come back, James is right there in the queue to talk about his skin condition and the lack of support coming from MCP. Jeffrey's got a curious one. He's having trouble opening up what we need, a registered childcare space. And then, of course, Mona's in the queue. She's got some sad news that hopefully we can help her out with, and then we'll speak with you. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. James King is a 23-year-old man living in Glovertown with an extremely painful skin condition. He's looking for some support from MCP. We'll get a conversation here now with James on 2. James, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing okay, thank you. How about you?
Good as it gets, I'd like to say. I'm just calling in this morning. Unfortunately, yesterday evening, after getting an update from the Department of Community Health and Services there, and I'm very much so shaking my head here this morning, and I'm hoping that maybe a minister or one of our local MHAs can possibly come on this morning and give me some more clarification here with this. Unfortunately, this morning, I've after getting there and after reading this response that I got back, it's nothing different that I've after having in the last couple of months. They've come back saying that this is a non-insured service and that they will not be covering laser hair removal for my disease. And because of this, they will send me out of province for complex medical cases, but it is still not involving anything to do with laser hair removal. So I'm just very much so confused here of where we're going with this, or where the province is thinking that this is financially responsible to be able to say that this isn't okay to be done in province, but okay, we'll send you out of province and spend so and so more on you.
Before we get into this most recent update from the government, tell us what your condition is and what it means.
Absolutely. So just for your viewers that I guess haven't been updated or just been recently with the news involved with CBC, I have a skin condition called hidradenitis suppurativa. Unfortunately, it causes large abscesses to form on my body. And from these abscesses, they need to be surgically removed to remove the full infection itself. These aren't something that can be just drained or lanced, or as some nurses and physicians know around our province, INDs. It's something that needs to have that full pocket removal. And from just this past year of 2024 and this 2025, I've had 9 operations, 3 inpatient admissions, my apologies there. And from that, it's been a constant just back and forth to the hospitals. So with the disease, it's definitely not something easy to deal with.
What does the research or the studies show the effectiveness of laser hair removal to treat this condition?
Absolutely. So I've seen through various different sites now and various different organizations that this is and does have a successful rate with it. Unfortunately, I don't have any numbers in front of me right now to be able to read off their statistics for it. There have been studies done through the Mayo Clinic down in the States. There have been studies done through the Canadian Dermatology Foundation. There's been studies done through the Canadian Hidradenitis Suppurativa Foundation, and they've all proven to be successful. And there's nothing coming back saying that this isn't something that is a possibility to have success with it.
Given the bills that would have been absorbed by the government for admissions and surgeries and the like, do you have a number that would involve this laser hair removal that you're seeking?
Absolutely, and it's quite, I guess, shaking at the number of what it is, because it's only $3,500. Now, I know looking at it, it's a very minuscule number, but in the overall aspect of everything that I've gone through at this point, it should be easy for the government to say, yes, we'll just cover that. And due to medical services, and I do have the understanding that laser hair removal is looked at and treated as a cosmetic service. But for this at this point, and through the medical services I've gone through under the hospitals, it should be done by case and reviewed the case by case.
Well, I read the story, James, and so you described some pretty lengthy hospitalizations. One, I think I remember being as long as maybe 35 or 37 days. If you take that one experience in the hospital, you could pay for that laser hair removal 10 times over.
Absolutely, and even just as recently as this past April, I've had another operation, and just that operation alone could have paid for this laser hair removal. So it's quite baffling now that the province wants to take this and still don't want to cover it, but want to send me out of province. It makes me rack my head. It's made quite a few different members of the House of Assembly rack their heads as well around this, and it just does not make sense. The ministry won't come back and have a proper, clear-cut response to this. That okay, we'll do something. We'll look at the financial responsibility of this, even outside of the medical case of this. It is just expenditure after expenditure after expenditure, and it makes me think how many other people are in this province going through the exact same thing that just haven't spoken up about this, and that are causing extreme expenditures on our already burdened healthcare system.
Yeah, I mean, I think it affects maybe 1 to 3% of the population, which is probably why it's not carefully considered and understood by MCP, in this case, or the Department of Health and Community Services. So you say they're talking about sending you up along out of province for what? For what kind of treatment?
It hasn't been clear cut to myself. So from treatments that I've looked at up outside of the province would be either considering removing sweat glands. These would be kind of very invasive processes outside of province, from my understanding, at least at this point. And I do have the understanding as well that with the laser hair removal, if I were to go out of province and have another doctor, say out of Ontario, I could go even as far as Australia at this point, the province to send me. And if I had 100 doctors sit down in front of me and write up letters, each saying that this is the right proper route to go with myself, I will still not have it covered. It is not in the policy under our government to have this covered. So this is where I shake my head at it. Why are you sending me up away for another doctor to look at me and recommend the exact same thing, and you're just still not going to cover it?
Yeah, it's many of these things do cause me to scratch my head. There was a story in the news some years back where a guy had this stomach wrap procedure. I can't remember the exact word for it, and he had excess skin and he couldn't get the government to cover it. But this is an issue where we are already, as a collective spending a ton of money to help you get the care you need, as opposed to maybe one final solution. And I read the story, so backed up by the Mayo Clinic, and actually looked at their website and saw some of the numbers of success rate, the Canadian Dermatological Association. So when we weigh case by case, if there's a physical advantage to you, which I'm sure is compromising your mental well-being as well, if we can do something that would inevitably cost us less, make your life better, allow you to study what you want to actually give back inside the healthcare system. I think you wanted to study paramedicine, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, looking at the burdens that have already been placed on the healthcare system as it is, I mean, it's something that I've obviously, I guess, grown a passion towards now that I would love to get back into. But going through what I'm going through right now, I can't be a contributing member of society, and it's shameful to say it, but I would love to be at the end of the day. And for them to keep looking at me and saying, well, no, we're just going to keep rolling the ball to somebody else. It just, to me, as a 23-year-old, just I sit there and, do I give up now, or do I do I just put everything down and walk away from it? I feel as if I have a life ahead of me at this point, and where's the government trying to help with that?
James, keep me in the loop. I wish you well, and hopefully, better senses come to play here, because there's a cost benefit here, and I hate to put dollars and cents out in front of your physical and mental well-being, but I really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for this. Stay in touch.
Thank you very much, Paddy. You enjoy your day now.
The same to you, sir. Bye-bye. Again, people may indeed have requests of government support for a variety of things that gets declined. But if he had this just out of one hospital stay, that added up to 37 days. And there was others where he was in there for over a week. Let's do the math. And sometimes it seems a bit cold and callous to do the math when we're talking about someone's physical health and the compromising of his mental well-being. Come on. Things don't need to be cut and dry, black and white. There's a savings here. If that's our focus is, how much money we spend on healthcare, but there's an opportunity to save, let's make the wise decision. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Last week, approximately 70 female high school students attended an event at the College of the North Atlantic called Jill of All Trades. Pretty self-explanatory, but join us on line number 2 is the Associate VP of Student Services at the College of the North Atlantic. That's Jeff Martin. Good morning, Jeff. You're on the air.
Good morning. Hi, Paddy. Thanks for having me on today.
Happy to have you on. Before we get into what the event looked like, what does enrollment into the trades by females look like currently at the college?
Well, typically, it's not as high as we would like it. Most of our trades are, traditionally a male-dominated field. But, in recent years, with programs such as Jill of All Trades and, our programs such as OTT, is Occupational Orientation to Trades and Technology for women, we're starting to see increases in our, number of our trades areas for females, which is great to see. Yeah.
So what exactly went on at the Jill of All Trades event?
Well, we had, like you said, we just had approximately 90 female students, high school students from the St. John's area, were able to choose between 3 of their top, selected trade areas out of 10. So we had, trade programs being represented from automotive service technician, or construction industrial electrician, carpentry, welding, power line technician, instrumentation and controls, heating systems technician, refrigeration and air conditioning mechanic, and auto body and collision technician. So typically what would happen is that the girls would select their top 3 choices, and then they would spend in between 30 minutes at each of those stations participating in hands-on activities that are directly related to those programs.
And there's a prosperous job opportunity ahead if you so indeed take on these trades. So this will give the female high school students exposure to what's out there in the various trades. How do you think that can help break down what people view as the barrier for women to get into the trades? Because some of that is stigma issue, which getting your hands on a spot welder gives you some exposure too, but how do you think this will help address the so-called barriers?
I think it goes a long way to address those barriers. You mentioned such a stigma. More and more often we're now seeing females in non-traditional career fields, which is great. And there's a lot of support from not only with the college, but typically in each of these programs, the classes are very supportive of one another. Regardless of either female or male. And so it's really allowing these female students coming in to get that exposure, try a few different trades, and many of them after the day expressed a lot of excitement and interest in applying to these trades areas, and with the hands-on opportunities, it really helps to solidify that level of interest. Many of our labs at the College of North Atlantic are very technologically savvy, as well as our classrooms. We've got high-end software, including simulators, for welding. So you're really allowing to expose yourself to these activities and hands-on trades without really immersing yourself, into the full classroom. So it gives them a taste of, what they'd like to do. And, I was there in person and got to speak to many of the participants, and many of them, had, top two choices that they were interested in applying to at the College of North Atlantic. And it was really great to see. Many of them come from a background where family members might also be involved in the trade. So, they've also got that supportive family component as well.
What kind of questions would they have been asking about job opportunities into the future, or sort of the rate of pay they might be able to expect, or what were they asking, or what were they saying?
Well, they ask all sorts of questions, and many of them are related to the career field. So, like, what are the job prospects, up and coming within the future in the province, and the rate of pay as well. And with some of the most recent announcements of some of the projects in Labrador, and then on the island, there is a strong appetite for building the number of graduates in our trades fields to start to fill some of these gaps that might be existing to support some of these big projects up and coming. And not only that, we've got an aging workforce, so it's to replace some of those workers within those fields as well.
It sounds like this was a home run, but you've also got this program going to be expanded to the Bay St. George campus. When?
On May 21st is our offering at the Bay St. George campus, right? And so it's going to have a little bit of a different focus because we don't have the same programs offered in St. John's as we do in Bay St. George. So, we'll be looking at, some heavy equipment, again with, some sports, technicians in terms of, our quads, the snowmobiles, Sea-Doos, and so on. So it's going to be really interesting to see the dynamic there as well. Lots of excitement again is being built up for this, and we're hoping that it's going to be another grand slam like it was this past week in St. John's at our PPD campus.
Yeah, I gave it home run. You gave it grand slam, even better.
Yes, absolutely.
There's an office of women in the trades inside the government itself. Do you work directly with that particular office to, coordinate these types of events, or is there a relationship there?
Well, we work with that office, and as well as I guess what was once IPGS. Now I think it's Population, Immigration, and Jobs. I think that's a new minister's office, but we work closely with them in terms of our entry-level apprentices and our advanced apprentices in terms of supporting all of the students that go through, and especially trying to muster up some excitement for the females entering our trades.
I really appreciate the time this morning, Jeff. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks a lot, Paddy, and we'll chat soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Jeff. All right, there we go. Jeff Martin, Associate VP Student Services at the College of the North Atlantic. Let's take another one on line number one. Mona, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Paddy.
Good morning.
I have a cat that I really love. She got out accidentally. She's a therapy cat. I've had her for 5 years. I have PTSD.
So is this a therapy cat, Mona?
Yes.
Okay.
And she's a calico cat. Her name is Priscilla. I live in Torbay Estates. Anybody living in that area, would they mind looking out for my Priscilla? I would really appreciate it.
I really hope that Priscilla is returned to you, Mona. When did Priscilla get out?
She got out yesterday morning. Not morning, midday. I opened the patio door, but I usually make sure that the screen door is closed.
Okay.
I live alone. I didn't check my screen door, but my daughter had gone out for a moment or so, and she neglected to close the screen. But when I opened the patio door, I didn't double check the screen, and it was open. So a couple of hours after, I went looking for Priscilla, and I couldn't find her. And then I discovered for my eyes to God.
Well, let's hope that people in the area, Torbay Estates, keep their eyes peeled for the calico cat that is Priscilla.
There are nice people here. They're real nice people, and I know they'll help me. I want my Priscilla back.
I know you do, Mona, and I hope you get Priscilla back as soon as possible. So, if anyone spots Priscilla, do you want them to just call us so we can connect you? What would you like to do?
They can call you, and you can connect me, please.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you kindly.
Good luck. Thank you, Mona.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, keep your eyes peeled in that area, folks. Priscilla is a therapy cat, so you know what to do. Let's take a break for the news. When we come back, Jeffrey Young, appreciate your patience, sir. He's got some problems trying to open up registered childcare. We'll see what Jeffrey has to say right after this, and then plenty of show left for you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning, Jeffrey Young. You're on the air.
Good morning, Petty. How are you today?
Excellent today. Thank you. How about you?
Oh, great. Thanks. So I'm calling in. I'm on behalf of the Mi'kmaq Cultural Foundation. I'm the president and CEO for the foundation. And since, I guess, December, we've been working on trying to open up a registered child care service in Stephenville. So as a nonprofit or charity, we are able to access the Child Care Capacity Initiative, which is a very, by the provincial government, which is a very generous amount of funding that's, that brings nonprofits or municipalities through, the startup cost, the planning, the needs assessment, and renovations, furnishings to open a registered childcare. The staff within the department that I've been in contact with have been phenomenal. They've been great to work with. Although the delays are very concerning, especially with the government, liking to talk about $10 a day childcare, but it takes 3 months for them to sign off on a approval to get just the first amount of funding. And then it took about 4 months for us to get reimbursed. Now, as a nonprofit, getting reimbursed for, significant amounts, it do put a strain on our operations, as many of our projects our funding is project based. It's not only that it's frustrating and such a need for such a delay just to get a signature on a piece of paper from the minister's office. It's not sustainable, and for the government to putting childcare at the forefront of many things, and talking about the $10 a day childcare, let's be real, it's not working. It's obviously not a priority.
There's lots of issues with the rebates going to childcare providers. That's long been a concern. So other than the time it takes, are there any hurdles that you have to clear before you get the signature, or is this simply a matter of time?
It's really just a matter of time. We submitted all the documents right away as soon as we're able to, and even when we were finished of phase 1, which was our needs assessment phase, to submit to phase 2, which would be to gather the quotes for the renovations and whatnot for the facility. I wasn't able to even submit an application until the end of April. Why? I'm not sure. So that was almost another month delay. And there's people I was talking to someone last night, actually, that inboxed me. I guess that you heard that we were looking to open a childcare center because they have children that they are needing to put in childcare. And they are, I know one of them is a health professional here in the town, and they are currently talking about having to move because they do not have the childcare. They're looking at all avenues. They're looking at even possibly leaving one of the parents leaving their job. And I see it weekly on social media, people looking for childcare. And they don't care if it's registered, not registered. They just need childcare. But with the $10 a day childcare, it's much more affordable for parents. And not only that, we're also looking to incorporate the Mi'kmaq culture into our childcare center. so our children can grow up surrounded by the Mi'kmaq language, teachings, elders, where, identity is affirmed daily. But center will be opened up to non-Indigenous as well, as we were looking to have minimum 34 spaces. But it's just, we're tired, we're frustrated with a system that continues to delay the process for something that is so urgent. We needed these spaces yesterday, not in a year's time.
That's where the disconnect between the messaging from government and the actual display of urgency are two worlds apart. We're told how important it is, and it is important. Affordable, accessible childcare. You just mentioned that someone talked about leaving to go somewhere else to get the required childcare, someone considering leaving their job to take care of their child. It just paints a very clear picture as to why it's so desperately needed. So when government makes a big deal of the announcements, and I understand why they do, and $10 a day, and we're creating all these spaces, and we're training the early childhood educators, we're changing their rate of pay and all. Okay, but then why is it taking so long for one entity, one organization, yours or others, to get rubber meeting the road and get some action here? Government does it all the time. They're quick to announce something, but they're slow to implement it. They're slow to approve things. They're slow to sign a piece of paper, and there's no good reason why.
Exactly. And we submitted everything on our part. We've been patient, but patience is running out. It's been a delay. And I emailed, the previous Minister of Education, but now that's changed. So about 2 weeks ago, I emailed her. I haven't received a reply, so I did send a follow-up on Monday to the new Minister for Department of Education. I have not heard back yet from them. I did include the Minister of Indigenous Affairs, Scott Reid, into my email about 3 weeks ago, and I did email him separately as well. I ended up being at an event where he was last week, which he told me he would follow up this week with me for a meeting, but I haven't heard anything.
Keep me in the loop, Jeffrey, when you can, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, will do.
Okay, good luck.
All right, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. What am I at here? Let's go to line number 1. Alan, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing, Paddy?
Great. How about you?
Oh, not too bad. Just calling about this patch and grind stuff that does on the roads.
Yep.
It's such a waste of money, waste of time. I'll pick one street in particular now, Doyle Street. They're at it again. I've been here 20 years, and every year just patch and grind. And it's just waste of money because they only does half the patch, cracks up, fills up with holes. I was wondering, Davis, the new fellow for the city, forget his first name.
Tom,
yeah. When you can't expect to call or get into it anyway, but if he's listening, just see if you can find out how much money they spent on patch and grind in the past 20 years just on Doyle Street compared to what it would cost to pave it. Because, this patch and grind is just a waste of money. The roads are always worse, right? Now, I drive cab, and a couple weeks ago, they're talking about the litter around. I guess the horse in the car, they're not concerned about the litter. It's the conditions of the friggin' roads, right? And which is true, is just a waste of money. There's never done properly with it. And I just wonder when they're going to stop wasting money and doing something right good with the roads so that we got good pavement. You're not pounding the guts out of your car, right?
Yeah, sometimes one of my concerns with the patch and grind, or the grind and patch, is that the delay between the grind and then the eventual patch. And you're right. You drive down Newfoundland Drive, it's like a patchwork quilt. We do an awful lot of patch or grind and patch. So that's a fair point and a fair question. I have no idea what the number looks like, but I can get it.
Yeah, I guarantee you, they're after spending more on patch and grind the past 20 years than it would cost to pave the road. Guaranteed.
Yeah, you could be right. I suppose it might be difficult to break it down insofar as what it would cost to pave Doyle versus how many times it's been grind and patched, but it's a pretty careful examination of how we approach road work here. I'll get the number.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy, right? Because, it's like they does the patch and it settles then, right? Because they don't compensate for the settling. So then you get the cracks around the sides. Then it comes back next year and digs up half it. It just drives me freaking crazy. I think it's time we got something got rid of in council members. They got someone who's going to get each department on side, so one department knows what the other department is doing. That's not a problem, right?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure councillors only have minimal input as to roadwork season and what gets done first, what gets fully repaved, what gets grinded and patched. But I will get some numbers as soon as I can, Alan. It's a good question.
Definitely. Well, I guess more so, I guess Danny Breen is the mayor, so I guess he'd be the one in charge of it. He should know. He's running the show down there. Right?
Yeah, I'll go to the department itself to get numbers. But now if Tom Davis or anyone else at the city who's an elected official would like to provide them to me before I have to jump through any hoops, I would appreciate that. And when I get them, I'll speak to them on the show.
Yeah, well, I was just talking to a fellow down there, actually, and I said to him, I said, look, sure, don't it make sense to have this all done at one time or something? And he said, well, my boss says if it makes sense, you don't make money. Right?
Yeah, I don't like to hear that all the same.
Yeah, well, I don't know. If I was in charge, I'd be doing a lot differently, I guarantee you.
I think there's a lot of people feel the same way, Alan. I appreciate the time and stay tuned to the show. I'll get the numbers.
Cool. Okay, you be safe, Paddy.
You too, pal.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye. All right, final break of the morning. When we come back, still a segment left for you. The topic, up to you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Mike, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How you doing today?
I'm really well today, thank you. How about you?
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're enjoying the sunshine.
Yeah, not bad. It's still cool, though.
I got a question for you. It's cold, but, hey, it's springtime in St. John's. What are we going to do?
I suppose, yeah.
Right? Listen, I got a question for you. You remember the Matthew, the boat replica that was built and toured all over the island there for the 500-year celebrations, whatever it was,
I do remember the replica of John Cabot's ship, the Matthew, yeah.
That's the one, exactly. I was just wondering, I was just curious, talking with one of my customers here earlier, and we were chatting about it, and we had no idea where it went or what happened to it.
I think it's out in Bonavista.
No, he's actually from there. That's why I mentioned it. And he said, no, it's not out there.
Well, that said, I don't know where it is, because I remember that it very quickly fell into disrepair. So it was 1997 where all that took place, and it was touring around for like 60 days, I think, before it hauled into Bonavista for the final celebration. If I remember correctly, it was some short years later where it needed an estimated $750,000 or something in repair to make it safe for it to be a tourist attraction. So if it's not in Bonavista, I have no idea where it is.
Okay, well, fair enough. I suppose I could have Googled it, but then I wouldn't have had this wonderful conversation with you.
Well, let me just see if I can find it, because that's actually a very good question. I haven't been to Bonavista in quite a long time, so I'm not really sure where it is.
Myself as well, yeah. Last time I was in Bonavista, I believe it actually was there, but I don't know where it is now.
Yeah, I don't either, but I'm sure I can find out. But I'll put it this way. If it's in as bad a shape as it was 10 years ago, or even longer than that ago, that's probably hid away somewhere, never to be seen again, even though it costs a ton of money to build it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I figured if anybody you'd know, or you could certainly find out anyway.
Oh, yeah, I'll find out. No problem.
All right, 10-4.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, buddy. See ya.
All the best. Bye-bye. I actually have some buddies who had an opportunity to spend some time. It was on the water for maybe a couple of months, I think, doing said tour before it landed in Bonavista for the 500-year celebrations. So, yeah, because 1497, of course, as we call John Cabot, but of course John Cabot is Giovanni Caboto. We don't do that, though. We anglicized it, and he's now John Cabot. And, yeah, a couple of the lads had an opportunity to be on the Matthew. Pretty cool experience. And it was an extremely cool replica. But where it is now, I don't know. But it really fell into a real sad state of disrepair. I mean, what a tourist attraction it could have been into the future. Now, was that a cause of not doing some of the preventative maintenance, or was it an issue regarding the initial build itself? I don't know. But if anybody listening to the show knows where the Matthew actually is, I guess the replica of the Matthew, I will pass that along via the airwaves to Mike, who just called with that exact question. All right, let's check in. There was actually an interpretation centre built out in Bonavista for the Matthew as well, wasn't there? So they should know. Well, I'm going to contact them. That just popped in my head that there is an interpretation center out there. I think it's called Matthew Legacy or something like that. They'll absolutely know if that's still even a thing as well. Because I guess with no ship, there might be just a sandwich board or a couple of placards talking about the Matthew and those excursions not only in 1497 but in 1997. I remember all that. And actually, as a matter of fact, one of the key organizers of all of those celebrations is a fellow named Brent Mead. Brent currently is running St. John's Sports and Entertainment. And I will say, because I know people are quick to want to say everyone does a bad job at everything, Brent and his team seem to be doing some good stuff. They got a good sound board down there now. The bookings look like they're up. And remember, coming back to the Mary Brown Centre in the fall, the Newfoundland Regiment playing in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Oh, and on that front, some of the top-ranked players, well, let's see here. I think there's some 21 players from this province that have been scouted and are on the scouted list for the upcoming draft, which is about a month away. And a couple of the players, Ben Vitch and Quinn Norman, pretty highly ranked. I think Vitch himself is maybe the 7th ranked skater, according to the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League scouting report. And young, let's see, 7th? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And there's something like 390 eligible players on that list, so 7's pretty rich. Then Quinn Norman, he's the 3rd ranked defenseman on that list of draft eligible players as well, so that's way up. What's the possibility for one of them, or maybe both of them, to get drafted to play in their hometown? I'm sure that would be a pretty thrilling start to the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League career. Both were on the Quebec Cup All-Tournament team, so pretty sound hockey players. We've been hearing about Vitch and Norman for a number of years, both playing, of course, AAA midget in Toronto or in and around Toronto. I think one of them plays for the Vaughan Kings and the other one I think plays for Simcoe, the Simcoe Express. That's the same place for Alex Nook. Played his AAA midget before he moved on to play junior in Victoria on the West Coast, of course, and then off to Boston College. I know on that from Boston College. So young Abby Nahook just concluded her career as one of the captains at Boston College. She has signed on with the management firm and has made herself eligible for the next Professional Women's Hockey League draft. So hopefully Abby gets a skate. She's had a great career up until now. You know, she has been on the development team for Team Canada, now eligible to be drafted by the PWHL, which of course is expanding. The expansion team is going to Vancouver, right? That would be 6 teams in the league or 7 teams in the league. They're also talking about 2 additional teams that could come sooner than later, maybe the following season or 2 seasons after this one. So there you go, some Boston College connections and Simcoe connections with young Nahook. So for Leafs fans, good luck tonight. A lot of my buddies are Leafs fans, and of course tonight it's the series tied 2-2. The home team has won all of the previous 4 games. They're back in Toronto for Game 5 tonight. So I would imagine the Leafs fans have a funny feeling, an eerie feeling that if it gets away from them tonight on home ice, that they could be in serious trouble going back to FLA for game number 6. And of course, Leaf fans have unfortunately been disappointed with playoffs year after year after year for quite a long time. And I'm not trying to rub salt in because I have no business or no interest in it, but having not won since 1967 is also, I think, a curious point there. Still the oldest team to have ever won the Stanley Cup. They had like 5 guys over the age of 40 and the highest average age of any team that's ever won the Cup. How about that? All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer David Williams, I'm your host Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.